Joining us now to figure this out is the president of the Crime Prevention Research Center and the man who exploded this information on Real Clear Investigations this morning, Dr. John Lott. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, thanks, Amanda. John, I appreciate you having me here.
We are so happy to have you. And, you know, it's my understanding that law enforcement agencies have to submit their data. Therefore, if you have law enforcement agencies in places like Oakland and San Francisco and Los Angeles and New York and Miami and New Orleans and high crime cities, and they are not submitting their data to the FBI, there's going to be a skewing of that number. So I suppose that, you know, you've got these two talking points. Democrats' crime is down, Republicans' crime is up. Kind of seems common sense to me that the numbers would be skewed in the wrong direction for Democrats, doesn't it?
Right. Maybe just back up a second here. There are two measures that we have of crime from the Department of Justice. We have crimes reported to police, and that's the FBI data that you're talking about. And then we have the Bureau of Justice Statistics has something called the National Crime Victimization Survey. And this was started over 50 years ago because we know most crimes aren't reported to police. You know, 40-some% of violent crimes are reported to police. About 30% of property crimes are reported to police. And so in order to get a handle on kind of reported and unreported crimes, they've been a massive survey. They survey about 240,000 people each year in order to try to get that. But, you know, you're bringing up important points even with the reported numbers. I think most people in the media just think all it is just counting the number of crimes that are there. And there's surely a lot of that. But as you say, there's some cities that only partially report their crime data to the FBI. There's other cities that don't report any crime data. And the FBI just doesn't put down zeros for those numbers. It has to go and estimate it. And it's kind of a black box on exactly, even when I worked in the Department of Justice, you know, they never really were completely clear on how they do that. And they've gone back now, kind of without any fanfare or announcing it, that they made changes for earlier data, particularly in 2021 and 2022, that dramatically changes a lot of what people thought was happening. We've seen during the Biden administration, the National Crime Victimization Survey has shown an unprecedented percentage increase in violent crime of 55%. That's slightly more than twice as large as the largest previous three-year increase that we saw. But the reported crime, it looked like in 2022 that it had gone down by 2.1%. So for the last year, because this number comes out in September the following year, for the last year, we've seen media headline after media headline saying crime is down, but people mistakenly or erroneously believe it's increased. Well, now we find even if that's the measure that you want to use, and I would think most people would rather look at total crime than just the number of crimes that are reported to police, rather than a 2.1% drop in 2022, it turns out that it was a 4.5% increase, which is, you know, just put it in kind of real terms, that's a difference of slightly over 80,000 violent crimes. It's a difference of 1,699 murders. It's a difference of over 10,000 rapes. It's a difference of 33,000 robberies and 37,000 aggravated assaults that were missed. That increase was missed.
Yeah. This is such an important thing because whole political debates, including the debate with David Murr, brought the statistic, and Donald Trump was fact-checked, and now it turns out Trump was right. The FBI was wrong. Here's a question a lot of people have. Is the FBI famous but incompetent, or is there some politics behind the scene going on here?
I can't tell you. You know, one can't get into people's minds there on that. I wish they were transparent. Look, the thing that makes this look worse is that if you look at their press release for the data that they put out last month, there's no mention about updating or changing the earlier data. In the report itself on crime, they have one footnote buried in the report that says, you know, by the way, we updated data for 2022, but no mention that it went from being negative to positive. You know, maybe they're just embarrassed that they made some mistake. I suppose that's possible. Maybe it's the politics that you're raising. But in any case, you'd like to have transparency there, given the amount of media coverage that's been done on this over the last year.
Well, thankfully, you gave us that transparency. We're grateful for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, Dr. Lott, I'm with you. I don't know if it's politics or not, but if it is, and Democrats are using this as an argument to make the Biden-Harris administration look better, kind of seems like it's a double-edged sword, because now, as a result, they have fewer examples to push gun control. How do they parse that?
Yeah, look, this administration has been the most anti-self-defense administration that we've had. I just give you a couple examples. The Biden and Harris administration have literally put thousands of gun dealers out of business for tiny, trivial paperwork mistakes. You transpose two letters in one form 18 years ago, and they'll go back and reopen the case and use it to take away a dealer's license to be able to go and sell guns. They've reinstituted Operation Choke Point under the Biden administration that had been under Obama. Trump had ended it, where they put pressure on financial institutions not to go and do business with disfavored industries or companies, from oil to firearms. Are there workarounds? Yeah, but it's difficult to go and handle the credit cards or checks for customers in those cases. It makes it more costly and more difficult for those companies to stay in business. And you've had a national gun registry put together under this administration. And so, it's obviously consumer data is important in the debate overall. I mean, you look earlier this year, there was a Gallup survey that showed that crime and violence was the #2 important issue among voters. And if you look at surveys over the last couple of years, the vast majority of likely voters have said that they're concerned about increasing violent crime. And I think what's happened, I mean, it's just not the government. I think the media has been very complicit in trying to shape the narrative on this. Look, you had last month, the National Crime Victimization Survey data came out. From the mainstream media, there was crickets, because it didn't, I like to think it's not because of this, but it's hard not to believe that just it didn't show the narrative that they wanted to show. You had a 55% increase in total violent crime during the Biden administration. This is after a drop of 15% under Trump. You had a 42% increase in rapes. You had a 63% increase in robberies, a 55% increase in aggravated assaults. You would think that's newsworthy. Yeah. But outside of the New York Post and Washington Times and Fox, probably you all, you just haven't seen news coverage of this. Yeah. And yet, a couple weeks later, when the FBI data came out and they said that there was a drop in crime for 2023, that got huge news coverage. And again, when David Muir corrects the president, he should have said reported crime fell, not total crime, because doesn't even measure total crime that's there. But you had USA Today having a headline saying for the last 2 years now, crime has fallen. Well, if they knew that they had revised the 2022 data to an increase, they couldn't have even said that.
That's a great point. Real quick, John, job numbers went down 800,000. Illegal immigration numbers went down a lot, but all they've done is move it to the ports through the CPB1, and now you got the crime statistics going up. Does government have a math problem right now?
Yeah, well, I mean, 800,000 extra jobs that weren't there really during the last year. That's a lot. Yeah. And the thing is, I'm an economist, and you kind of knew that was coming because we had adjustments in the past there, and we know that there's a difference between the different measures that we have for employment. And so the question is, why haven't they fixed it? Why do they wait to go and fix these types of things? It's not obvious to me. I mean, maybe one can say government workers, don't put in a lot of hours, so you can't expect them to go and fix these measures very quickly. I don't know. But, with regard to illegal immigration, there's real problems in terms of estimating these things. We've pulled off 90% of the agents that would normally be guarding the border to go and handle processing. We just had a report put out that something about a third of the passive monitoring systems along the border are non-functional. So there's basically several types of illegal immigrants that are coming in. There are those that turn themselves in. There are those that are caught. There are those so-called gotaways that we see coming in, but we don't catch. And then there's a large group of people that we never see. And that could be many, many millions that are coming in that we don't even see because we don't have agents on the border and we don't have the passive monitoring, the cameras and stuff to try to count the people that are coming across.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
In Washington, it just seems to be the trajectory that people fail up, so maybe they're failing math on their way to failing up. Dr. John Lott, president of the Crime Prevention Research Center, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for that article this morning. Everybody go check it out over on Real Clear Investigations.